The President. Members, government officials, good morning. This Council resumed the debate on the 4 subsidiary legislations relating to ride-hailing service. Mr. Yuming. Thank you, President. Ride-hailing service in Hong Kong have been here for over 10 years. It's become one of the options for people's commute. Many drivers work on part-time basis in offering point-to-point transport services flexibly. Over the past decade, ride-hailing service has been existing in a gray area. They're not protected by insurance, and there's been disputes among the ride-hailing vehicle drivers and taxi trade. This regulation has achieved a breakthrough, and in 2025, upon passage of the principal ordinance, the government now, through the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation, set out details on granting licenses and permits to vehicle and drivers that cover the ride-hailing service regulation, driving license regulation, limit on number of ride-hailing vehicle permits, and ride-hailing service ordinance. The regulations will offer more options for people commute. It allows us to combat illegal carriage of passenger for reward and white license cars. I have the following concerns. First, on the cap on the number of vehicle permits. Now it's set at 10,000. I think that this is a cautious number. It has struck a balance between the road capacity, public transport ecosystem, and the demand of passengers. Although some platforms want more permits to be issued, the taxi trade is worried about heightened competition. I think that this is a good starting point. The government can have regards to the market operation, dynamically adjust the number of vehicle permits to be issued. The administration said that the number of vehicle permit is not set in stone yet, and they will make adjustment in the future. What is the mechanism for adjustment? I hope that the government will announce the assessment framework soon. Are they going to take into account the waiting time of passengers, the usage rate of public transport, and performance of the platform? I think that the administration should disclose the assessment report to the public and the trade. Now, on the fares to be set by the platform, the government said that they reserve the power to make assessment. I'm worried that there will be an inflation-style competition within the trade. The government said that if they intervene, then there will be imbalance in the market. But what does it mean? When will government intervene? I think that the administration need to clarify it. President, in the Road Traffic Driving License Amendment Regulation 2026, the government proposed a combined driving test for taxi drivers and ride-hailing vehicle drivers. I think that this is a great idea. If a person chooses to become a taxi driver after passing the test, they can take pre-service course for taxi drivers. We also allow taxi drivers to obtain the ride-hailing vehicle permit immediately and automatically. I think that this protect the flexible employment model of taxi drivers and ride-hailing vehicle drivers. This solve and address the aging problem of taxi drivers. I think that these 4 subsidiary legislations is offering a more convenient way for people to go out and about, to commute, and this set a clear legal framework for the trade. I think that the details of the regulation have already struck a balance between passenger safety and the interest of traditional taxi trade. But I think that the government need to be transparent. They need to keeping close communication with the trade and the public to improve our public transport policy regularly. Thank you.
Dr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, President. I'm a member of the Bills Committee last year when we scrutinized the legislation on ride-hailing services. Now, at the Bills Committee, as a member, I repeatedly urged the administration to consider the feature of ride-hailing services and the full-time, part-time model in considering the number of permits. In the resumption of second reading of the bill, I also urged the Secretary for Transport and Logistics also emphasized that with innovation technology, more choices should be offered to members of the public under the shared economy model. At the panel meeting in May, many members asked about the 10,000 permits and that there is a shortfall comparing to public demand. Now, last year, there were over 30,000 active drivers. So we're talking about some 9,000 full-time drivers together with other drivers on the platform. And according to the estimate of the Bureau, every day, the ride-hailing service platform provides services up to 114,000 trips. So at least if all permits holders are in service, they need to work 6 hours in order to meet the target. And I have 3 suggestions. We need to take a scientific approach in assessing the number of permits required because of the long-standing problem. Taxi permits have become a tool of investment, and that is why people have turned to ride-hailing services. The government should make use of a scientific approach in assessing the needs, and that we should base our assessment on market data so as to flexibly adjust the number of permits. The second suggestion is that we should make use of innovation technology, and according to users of the platform, be it taxis or other forms of vehicles, after placing an order in just 1 or 2 minutes, the car would arrive to take the order. And in 2022, the Consumer Council in Australia and the Competition Tribunal ruled that the platform is obliged to exercise oversight over the platform vehicles. Now, whereas for Hong Kong, we have yet to draw up legislation to target this matter. So we should draw up compliance standards to ensure consumer protection and the rights of drivers in order to foster a healthy competition. That's the third point. According to members of the public, very often in case of emergencies, this platform only provides a chatbot service, and the chatbot always beats about the bush. It's very difficult to find a real staff member to solve problems. Ride-hailing service is welcomed by the public exactly because of its better quality. It's not just a platform that provides matching services. We need the platform to take responsibility when it comes to safety and overall service quality as well. Conditions should be included in the license and permits together with a performance pledge so as to enhance service quality and foster healthy competition among the platforms. This can provide safeguards for passengers as well as drivers. Now, for the traffic data obtained through the platform's operation, I hope that these data can be made available so that our I&T institutions can then conduct studies to further improve our situation and build a smart city with smart traffic management. Now, 10,000 permits is just the beginning. With dynamic assessment and monitoring, I hope that with the use of big data, we can further improve our transport infrastructure in this big era. Mr. Lothair Lam. Thank you, President. Ride-hailing service has become part of our people's day-to-day living. That it should come with proper regulation and restrictions to cater for the needs of commuters and also to safeguard the interests of passengers. We also need to ensure healthy and fair competition in the trade. Now, there is demand for this service, and the subsidiary legislation amendments on this occasion sets out technical details for the operation of the platform, the number of permits and obligations, such as record keeping and identification of platform vehicles. Now, in relation to the number of permits, the administration has proposed to cap the number at 10,000. I think this is a prudent approach in order to balance different interests. The government emphasizes dynamic monitoring, and this is important. In the future, should there be changes in the demand for ride-hailing services, or that there is a significant impact on the taxi trade, the government should review all factors and make suitable adjustments to ensure smooth implementation. President, the introduction of ride-hailing service seeks to provide healthy competition with the taxi trade, and it also provides sustainable development of personalized point-to-point transport services. I think that we should ensure a level playing field for both trades. Take car insurance as an example. The law provides that taxi owners will be required to take out third-party insurance, and that's a heavy burden. Now, as for ride-hailing services, according to the subcommittee's discussion, the government intends to require the driver of platform vehicles to take out insurance instead of requiring the platform operator to do so. More importantly, in the case of an accident, it may not be easy to delineate responsibilities. If drivers take out insurance themselves, it will provide clearer delineation of responsibilities to avoid disputes. It will also safeguard passenger safety and their properties. According to the administration, the fares of ride-hailing services are on the high side. Fee schedule should not be set up because otherwise it will hamper the operation of the market. However, there are also platforms adopting different means, such as providing discounts for regular passengers, and this is the cause of vicious competition. Now, last year, when scrutinizing the principal legislation, the administration agreed that should there be a cutthroat price war and a race to the bottom, the residual power will be exercised, and I hope that the government will monitor the situation and intervene when necessary so as to ensure a level playing field. An important aspect of ride-hailing service is a driver-owner requirement. This can avoid the permit being passed on to others for speculation or illegal employment. According to the administration's paper, the platform is required to perform due diligence check, and that face recognition technology will be used to identify the drivers providing the service. However, this may be of limited effectiveness because the driver may first verify the identity with facial recognition and then let others drive the vehicle. So the government should require multiple identification technologies to be used apart from facial recognition by platform operators so as to implement the driver-owner requirement. Now, this is a new phase for public transport policy in Hong Kong. I hope that the administration will continue to review the situation to make sure that the policy is effective and that we can promote the healthy and long-term sustainable development of personalized point-to-point transport services in Hong Kong. Mr. Jonathan Lampert. Ride-hailing services has been a problem for Hong Kong for over 10 years. We need to ensure the health of the ecosystem of the traditional transport industry. We also need to meet the needs of diversified needs of commuters. It's no easy task. The government has been proactive in handling this matter. It shows the government's determination, and I give full recognition and support. 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation are involved in this exercise in the deliberation process. I noticed that in terms of certain details, the government needs to take a more visionary approach. Now, frankly, I have reservations about the number of permits being capped at 10,000 because, from the market's perspective, there is very keen demand and short of supply. During peak periods, it's difficult to hail a ride, and at the end of the day, it's the customers who suffer. The administration emphasizes dynamic assessment, but still, in the case of lack of cars in service, will we be able to flexibly increase the quota? Now, there is still a question mark on this matter. According to the administration's estimate, for 10,000 cars, they can provide 120,000 trips per day, and this should not cause inconvenience to passengers. However, when it comes to traffic demand, it's not an even distribution throughout the day. For example, during inclement weathers or when there is an emergency to send an elderly to a hospital, there is no alternative. So I hope that a scientific basis will be adopted, say for P90, that is 90% journey time, so as to estimate the demand. And according to the administration, permits will be subject to balloting. We should give priority to existing owners to prevent a surge in the number of cars causing a burden to the road network. However, the commissioner is given this residual administrative power to reserve a certain proportion of permits to cars, and there are ordinary cars as well as new energy vehicles. We should consider the priority so as to promote green and low carbon transformation of the transportation sector. As for the permit holders, they should meet the basic operational requirements to avoid speculation of the permits, and that we can avoid owners from hoarding the permits and wasting public resources. Now, on owner-driver requirements, in the case of a vehicle going out of order or traffic accident, there is no backup vehicle available for the driver. So according to the existing administrative procedures for the transfer of vehicle ownership, it takes 2 or 3 months. And for self-sustaining drivers, they can't make ends meet in meantime. So a provisional permit mechanism should be set up. If the car has broken down or is unable to put into service, the driver should provide the relevant repair and maintenance documents or police reports as proof for a provisional permit up to 14 days. Now, this is just the first step in regulating ride-hailing services. After passage of the legislation, the government should continue to adopt flexibility and dynamic assessment to monitor the effectiveness of the regime, and that the cap should be subject to review and adjustment after dynamic assessment, and only by doing so will members of the public feel a very good commuting experience.
多謝主席。
Dr. Thomas So. Thank you, President. The framework that legalized ride-hailing vehicles came into effect last year, and we have on this occasion 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation setting out the regulatory details. As a member of the subcommittee, I support the relevant legislative work. The subcommittee received 1,221 submissions from members of the public as well as deputations. It is a record high for the current term Legislative Council. It shows that the members of the public are paying close attention to the regulatory details of the ride-hailing vehicles. Most of the public submissions have raised concerns about the limit being set at 10,000. They're concerned that the number may not meet the demand. It may cause a fluctuation in fares. There are also concerns about the number of permits, and the mechanism of drawing lots may affect the business of current drivers as well as taxi drivers. With other areas such as insurance and operational criteria, there are also some comments. There is a gap between the stances of members of public and deputations. The administration's response said they want to be prudent and has considered a number of factors when setting the limit of 10,000. The administration also pledged that dynamic assessments would be conducted to see if the limit has to be adjusted. I think the administration's attitude is very important when there is a gap in understanding between members of the public and the relevant companies. But because while the administration is being prudent, its decision is justified. With subsidiary legislation, the relevant pieces of subsidiary legislation we have seen for commercial vehicles, as ride-hailing vehicles work just like commercial vehicles. We have an age requirement as well as driver fitness requirement for commercial vehicles. We should have similar requirements for ride-hailing vehicles, as well as other regulatory details, such as the specified trips, number of trips, as well as other requirements for platforms. The administration has given a response, and the secretary said she would promulgate clear guidelines and codes of practice to help with implementation of relevant provisions. I appreciate the Bureau is taking a pragmatic yet proactive approach. I believe the administration will do the same in responding to public concerns. I do understand there are public views to calling for an increase of the limit. As we see a gap in views between members of the public and some groups, I urge the administration's dynamic assessments should be data-based and respond to public concerns to make sure we respond to public expectations. Overall speaking, I support the legislative work of the administration. I hope that with dynamic assessments, we will be able to see sustainable development of the ride-hailing vehicle trade in Hong Kong. Mr. Chun-ying, thank you. President, thank you, Secretary. I myself support the relevant subsidiary legislation. With the regulatory regime, it should help us enhance our transport services. It also enhances our image as an international metropolis, as well as logistics hub. President Xi said multiple times that transportation is an important part of the economy and civilization, and we should expedite construction of a transportation powerhouse. The National 15th Five-Year Plan also talks about how we are to have a comprehensive, modernized transportation system. And in fact, in the mainland and overseas, they have recognized our transportation system to be advanced, but there is always room for improvement. The chief executive said we should enhance point-to-point transport services to provide more diversified options for citizens. And the DAB supports the setting up of a more comprehensive regulatory regime for ride-hailing vehicles and drivers. We have to strike a balance between the development as well as the interests of existing taxi drivers, as well as citizens and visitors' experience of transport services. I think in the end, the arrangements are beneficial. The administration's approach is gradual and dynamic. We want to gradually open the market. We will have a standing mechanism for monitoring the situation. We should look at data, for example, success rate of hailing vehicles, satisfaction with the experience, road congestion, and make dynamic assessments and adjustments. As the Secretary said, we need some time to gauge the situation. we have 4 different seasons, different weather conditions that may affect the situation. And many noted when they use app for taxis or hailing vehicles, if people have the expectation, there is not much dispute as the fare is already decided. When people just take taxis at taxi stand, there may be a dispute. Going smart is keeping abreast with the times, and it also helps with social governance in the end. Many said enhancing market competition should help enhance the overall level of standard of services. And we can look at the experience of the mainland and overseas that can really be of reference. People had different views about the limit being set at 10,000, 30,000 and whatnot. And as the secretary said, she wanted to select a number that is most appropriate at this time. I think with these subsidiary legislation, we are moving forward despite difficulties. We are seeking breakthroughs. Let's give more time for the new system to work and improve itself. I believe with concerted efforts from the administration, the sector, and citizens, our ride-hailing vehicles, with the development of mega events economy, will prosper despite us lagging behind before. Thank you. Mr. Tankapu, thank you. President, we have finally entered this stage, which is not easy. Drivers are very sensitive in increasing supply of transportation services. It is indeed not easy to convince them. Some say the limit is too high, some say the limit is too low. It is exactly about striking a balance. But with the regulations coming into effect, it officially signals the start of the regime. So we have registrations for both drivers and platforms. I hope in future the secretary can maintain good relations with the platform companies. With the limit being set at 10,000, even with owner-driver requirement, the number may fluctuate. We also need to consider in future whether the permits will be automatically renewed. There are many challenges ahead. We should have regard to the data and performance. We have to rely on platforms in providing their data to the administration on their drivers, that may include even taxi drivers, for the administration's overall assessment. I think it's not just about registration and making sure they don't hire illegal workers. It is about facilitating the development of transportation, as the administration has issued licenses to these ride-hailing platforms. The platforms have the responsibility to submit their operational data for the administration's analyses. We also need to maintain good relations with labor unions as well as driver groups. Drivers are highly proactive, and they also are very sensitive to unfairness. They care much about their interests. It's not just about general labor relations. There is a sensitive topic of profit sharing between the platforms and drivers. The first case of platform worker fighting for employee interests in court in the world is in the UK. A UK driver associated with the Uber platform. Basically, the case decided that all drivers under the Uber platform are entitled to employee rights. Afterwards, the UK government set up new laws that on top of the traditional employee definition, we have platform workers being awarded with basic protection. And at the panel on manpower meeting on Friday, Mr. Chris Sun talked about some legislative work for digital platform workers. It had reference to the UK model. Well, platform workers are mostly referring to delivery workers, but with the legislation coming into effect, drivers may fight for their own interests. The secretary may be responsible for transportation policy, but she should look ahead. We should have regard to the practices of the International Labour Organization in promoting tripartite collaboration. We expect to award licenses to 3 or 4 platforms. We should involve them in the tripartite group so that we have the administration, the companies, as well as the unions and drivers' representatives in the group, so that we will not have people fighting for their interests on the streets or in court. Instead, they can just talk about them in the group. This is beneficial to the prosperity and stability of society. I hope the Secretary can look forward in anticipation of any potential challenges. We can continue to communicate on this. I so submit speaking in support of the motion.
Mr. Alan Chan, President. Ride-hailing vehicles been operating in Hong Kong for a number of years. They exist in the gray area and it resulted in many problems. I'm glad that under the leadership of Secretary Chan, the government is facing up to the challenges and we're addressing this issue that have lasted 10 years. I recognize their efforts. Under the new system, we're going to issue licenses and permits to the platform, to the drivers and the vehicles. The vehicle permit is capped at 10,000. If we now launch a combined driving test for taxi drivers and ride-hailing vehicle drivers, it will make sure that we clarify the responsibility and operation requirements, and this offer our passengers another legal option for commute. The government said that they're going to implement dynamic assessment. However, apart from legalizing ride-hailing service, we need to make sure that we supervise them, we monitor it. I have 6 suggestions. First, the speed of vehicles during peak hours is dropping. The highest speed used to be 25.6 km per hour in 2003 before Uber came to Hong Kong. It dropped to 22 km per hour in 2025. The number of point-to-point transport service vehicle is growing, and this will exacerbate the traffic congestion. London does not set a cap on the number of ride-hailing vehicle permit to be issued. The taxi trade interests have been heavily affected. So I think that we should learn from it. In London's newspapers, their journalists praise our system. They praise that we're using 10,000 vehicle permits as a cap, having regard to the capacity of the trade. Second, we have to address the need of tourists. 76% of visitors come from the mainland. They are used to using mobile phone to make bookings. For visitors coming from America and Europe, they're used to using Uber. East Asian tourists, they use Grab. So I think that we need to invite more platforms to come to Hong Kong. Third, we need to protect the income of ride-hailing vehicle drivers. Over the past 3 years, Uber increased their commission rate by 10%. Currently, the calculation of commission is unclear and not transparent. During peak hours, the fares is high. During non-peak hours, the platform offered discounts, and as a result, the income of drivers can be affected. So I think that we need to set a cap on the commission that the platform can charge. It should be set at 20%. I think that we also need to ask the platforms to disclose the expenditure they spend on advertisements. We need to protect the income of the drivers. Fourth, we need to build a healthy and fair competition environment. Currently, the responsibility of platform drivers is unclear. When accident happen, passengers is not protected by insurance. So I think that we should ask the taxi and ride-hailing service drivers to adopt the same commercial and business insurance standards. We need to make sure that damages is paid to affected passengers and drivers. We need to set a cap on the fare adjustment of ride-hailing service vehicles and platforms. Fifth, we need to guard against data. Platform collect data on passengers and drivers' commute. If the servers storing these data is stored in other countries, it will pose national security risk. I think that we need to ask the platforms to place their servers in Hong Kong. Now on tax, the IRD should be able to review the servers at any time. Sixth, we need to make use of big data. We need to analyze it so that we can further improve the traffic and transport management during mega events. President, by having this regulation, we are trying to hold the platform operators liable and responsible. Your time is up. Dr. Junis Ho. President, we always have to improve ourselves. The same goes for the taxi trade. Taxi industry is a traditional trade. The service they offer affects people's impression of the city. Very often when visitors arrive in a place, they take taxis after getting off their plane. So I think that we need to make sure that the quality of service offered by taxi drivers is up to par. There have been a number of issues with the trade. The taxi drivers in Hong Kong offer poor service quality. Their cars are old. Now we have 20,000 taxi permits, but only 18,000 of them are active. About 3,000 to 4,000 of them are frozen. They're not used. Members of the public find it difficult to hail a taxi on the street. This used to be a problem, but due to technological advancement, we have ride-hailing service. But as this service is offered illegally, the government tried to combat them. But people think that the ride-hailing service is of quality. That's why they prefer it. And as a result, the government try not to combat the trade too significantly. Now, I fully understand why the government issue or set a cap of vehicle permit at 10,000. As we embrace new things, we also have to care about the taxi industry. The fact is that we have still 10,000 odd taxi drivers working. With the ride-hailing service trade and the taxi trade, we need to strike a balance, and we have to be forward-looking. Taxis can pick up passengers on the street. Why don't we allow them to accept booking online? They cannot accept bookings via telephone. I think that over the long run, we need to mix the two trades together. This is how we make our society and community better. This should be our goal. This regulation is about oversight of the ride-hailing trade, but I think that we need to combine the taxi trade with the ride-hailing industry. Yesterday, when we talked about how we need to salvage our post office, we have 6,000 postmen. In 3 years' time, the $600 million that we grant the post office will be exhausted. And very soon, they're going to come back to ask for money again. I think that we need to outsource the service offered by the post office. I just found that at SF Express, staff, each of them earned $70,000 for the company. I only recently learned that we are losing money with the post office. I think that we need to retrain the postmen. We should train them to become taxi drivers. We have 5,000 civil servants then to drive taxis. This is how we make our taxi drivers younger. And when the money they earn by driving taxis, for example, 20,000 per month, should go back to the government. I think that we need to be innovative. We need to make good use of our talents. Because many postmen are left idle, they don't have any work to do. I think that we need to ask them to become a taxi driver so that they contribute to our society. This may be a crazy idea, but we need to be innovative. We need to be creative. As long as civil servants are serving the people, we need to redeploy them to some other positions. And I think that this is worth considering. Mr. Adrian Ho, thank you. I believe that many of us, when we go to the mainland, we make use of online ride-hailing service. The industry there is very mature, but they take a progressive approach in the monitoring system. They establish their vetting system for platform vehicles and drivers progressively. They also make adjustment having regards to the actual demand of the market. Our situation is very much similar, so I support the government in adopting this progressive approach in improving the regulation over ride-hailing service. The core of this regulation is about the vehicle permit cap of 10,000. I believe that the government have taken into account the demand of passengers and views of different stakeholders before deciding on the cap. The Transport Department need to make sure that the granting process is smooth. And they need to prepare ahead, make sure that we have enough resources and manpower to make the work efficient. I hope that the vetting process of vehicle permits can be reasonable. Now on to the actual situation in ride-hailing market. I know that there are quite a number of passengers who are already used to using ride-hailing service. So I like to focus now on how the government will adopt this dynamic assessment approach. I hope that the government will actually make adjustment having regards to the actual situation in the market. They need to adjust the number of vehicle permit cap in time to make sure that we strike a balance between demand and supply in the market. Second, after the platform come into operation legally, the government need to assess the capacity of the ride-hailing service. We need to ask the platform to give government actual figures on, say, for example, number of active drivers, average number of working hours of theirs, how long people need to wait before they're matched with a car, a number of completed journeys, so on and so forth. This is how the government can analyze the data in depth and make dynamic assessment, increase or decrease the number of vehicle permits to meet the transport demand of the society. President, apart from dynamically adjusting the vehicle permits of 10,000, if we see too many zombie permits or during adverse weather conditions, during mega events or festivals, there may be a deep increase in demand for ride-hailing service. I think that the government need to establish a mechanism to increase the number of ride-hailing service vehicle drivers that we have at specific time when there is great demand. So I think that we need to establish a waiting list, and I hope that the government will adopt a multi-pronged approach in monitoring the platform and drivers. On the one hand, the law enforcement agencies need to combat illegal carriage of passengers for reward, make sure that passengers legally can legally take ride-hailing vehicles. On the other hand, we need to make sure that by 22nd of August next year, all ride-hailing platforms hold the license. They need to perform their due diligence responsibility. They need to make sure that the owner-driver requirement is met. I hope that as the platforms fulfill their responsibility, we'll work together to maintain the fair and healthy development of our point-to-point transport service. For taxis and ride-hailing vehicles, I hope that they can build a fair environment in protecting the interest of passengers, of drivers, visitors, business travelers. And I hope that all of them will be able to obtain an efficient and convenient multiple-point transport. Thank you.
多謝主席，本人代表工聯會就察悉議案。
Mr. Lamoy Kwong. President, I represent the FTU and like to say the following. About 10 years ago, when the first ride-hailing service platform tapped our local market, white license illegal vehicles not only ate into the legitimate business of taxis, they also affected the livelihood of taxi drivers. Not all of them had suitable licenses and insurance, and that caused a lack of protection for drivers and passengers, and that there is a loophole in our laws, and the order of point-to-point transport services in Hong Kong is disrupted. This is a lose-lose situation for all. This vicious circle should not continue, and this term of government has been proactive in resolving the problem of white license cars through legislation. After passing the principal legislation, the administration has now proposed 4 subsidiary legislation to complete the regulatory framework for ride-hailing cars. Now, this framework has also incorporated views of the FTU and making reference to the mainland model. We require permit licenses as well for platform operators and drivers, and there are also requirements such as due diligence checks and the driver-owner requirement to prevent speculation of the permits. The administration will conduct dynamic assessment to ensure a balance of supply and demand. There is also regard to the livelihood of taxi drivers, as well as additional burden on the road network. Members have mentioned 10,000 permits being the cap. I want to point out that there are 18,000 taxis for providing point-to-point personalized transport services. Altogether, there are 50,000 cars providing personalized services on the road. And I think there should be sufficient supply to meet the commuting demand. The FTU in principle agrees with the government's proposal. We hope that the government will continue to coordinate to ensure market efficiency. Taxi trade should be given priority, and ride-hailing service should complement the service. We should continue to combat white license vehicle to achieve a healthy competition and win-win for all. But I emphasize that there is room for improvement, especially when it comes to regulating the platform. Some of the provisions will only come into effect in August 2027. There is a window in between for the platform to allow non-permit holders to provide service. There is also no requirement on the actual implementation of the driver owner requirement. For example, in terms of the commission rate to be charged by the platform, as well as protection for drivers sustaining injury at work, etc. There are also problems such as providing excessive subsidies or acquiescing non-permit holders as drivers to take orders by the platform operators. These are problems yet to be resolved. There are also matters relating to national security risk, the storage of data, location of operational platform. The administration should plug these loopholes as quickly as possible to address the gray areas, in other words, so as to make sure that only legitimate and qualified drivers join the platform. Now, for ride-hailing service, it adopts algorithms similar to other platform workers. Drivers are in no position to bargain with the platform companies. The FTU has all along urged the government to set up a three-party coordination mechanism comprising platform operators as well as platform workers, so as to provide basic protection for the workers and to regulate the algorithms to avoid unhealthy competition and exploitation of drivers. Now, the government will table such a bill this year. We welcome the bill. We urge the government to include ride-hailing drivers into the area of scope of protection. Now, there is a strict rule on taxi meters. However, there is no regulation as far as the law is concerned on fares of ride-hailing services. The FTU expects some commuters turning to ride-hailing services, and this will further hamper the taxi trade. We should set up a development fund to help the taxi trade improve their service quality and ensure healthy and sustainable development. Now, the balloting mechanism will be adopted when it comes to issuance of permits. We should make sure that these drivers have sufficient experience. I so submit. Mr. Jonathan Lau. President, the Liberal Party supports government's regulation of ride-hailing services and put a cap on the number of permits, because at the moment there are over 10,000 illegal white license cars plying the road, offering service and causing danger to road users and members of the public. Last year, the principal legislation was passed. Now the government has proposed 4 items of subsidiary legislation to implement the details. The Liberal Party hopes the government will ensure healthy competition with taxi trade as a backbone of personalized point-to-point transport service and ride-hailing service as a complementary service. I thank the government for heeding the views of the taxi trade. There will be a combined test so that all drivers will start from the same starting line. And there is also the driver owner requirement to avoid shadow drivers or illegal workers from taking up business. And in the principle of fairness and for the sake of road safety, we should provide a level playing field to both taxi drivers and ride-hailing drivers, and that these cars should also be equipped with the 3 devices, that is the dash cam, global positioning, as well as the log. In fact, the latest generation of cars are already equipped with such devices. They should not pose additional burden on platform operators. Now, passengers may rate the platform drivers, but still the driver, subject to bad ratings, may just turn to another platform to continue his service. It's very difficult to exercise effective monitoring. So we should set up a point demerit system similar to the taxi driver offense point system, so as to step up regulation of ride-hailing vehicles, so that those who are not qualified will be barred from purchasing new cars and joining the ride-hailing services again in the short run. We should also ensure the years of service of vehicles that since the government has expressed that the market should decide on the fares of ride-hailing cars, we should make sure that the taxi trade's concern is addressed. That is to avoid cutthroat price wars. We should also avoid the taxi trade from adopting an evolution-style competition. A level playing field should be provided. The government has kept the number of permits at 10,000, but we have reservations. With continuous expansion of the railway network and people going up north for spending, we're losing the customer base. And for incoming visitors, they are not sufficient in driving demand. At the moment, many taxis are left idle. In fact, several hundred taxis are just set aside with no driver in supply. And this will further deal a blow to the taxi trade. The Liberal Party supports the government's dynamic assessment approach. In the future, the government should have regard to data and adjust the permit number or the cap in a timely manner to ensure that the taxi trade will not be significantly impacted upon. According to some platform operators, if we regulate the number of permits, that means more waiting time for commuters. The Liberal Party believes that the key is to make sure that there is efficient matching of orders. We also urge the government to phase out white license vehicles as quickly as possible. Now, permits will be issued together with vehicle licenses, etc., by the end of this year. But then, platform operators will not be issued licenses until the 22nd of August 2027. And meanwhile, existing licensed platforms will need to conduct due diligence checks. There will also be impounding of offending vehicles, etc. That means the legitimate white license cars will still be able to operate for more than a year, and this is undesirable. The relevant provisions should come into effect as quickly as possible to plug the loophole and ensure safety. Mr. Chow Su-chong. Point-to-point personalized services, especially ride-hailing services, is an irreversible trend. In the mainland and many cities in other places, this is already a mature industry. It provides quality choice for commuters. It also provides jobs for grassroots. And these are flexible modes of employment. There have been calls from all sectors of the community to regularize ride-hailing vehicles and to set up a regulatory framework. Last year, the principal legislation was passed. This year, further amendments have been put forward to implement the technical details and operating mechanism. The government proposes setting a cap at 10,000. I think that this is a balance, having regard to the various views. The government has adopted a pragmatic approach. However, after implementing the arrangements, now if there are problems arising from, for example, long waiting time and an inability to hail a ride during peak hours or surge in fares, the government should step in and resolve problems. If it is found to be due to a lack of number of permits, the government should increase more permits to address the inconvenience. Now, there is also a license renewal requirement, and that a sufficient number of journeys should be met. That means each license or permit will be of value. Imagine ride-hailing service is the outcome of shared economy. Many people own their private cars and they take orders when they have free time. So many ride-hailing drivers are actually part-time drivers. If the government set too high the threshold on the number of journeys, that means only full-time drivers will be able to renew their permits, and that is contrary to the original intent of shared economy. However, if the threshold is set too low, it will lose its meaning. The government should strike a balance, having regard to prioritizing the livelihood of part-time drivers as well. Now, at the subcommittee meeting, I expressed strong concerns. That is, for a driver who suffered from injury, who who suffers from injury because of traffic accident and is unable to drive for a long time, or if the vehicle is broken down, that it takes a long time to repair, then there is a legitimate reason for not meeting this threshold. It's not due to its own fault, but then this injured driver will lose his livelihood as well because he's unable to renew the license or the permit. And according to the written response of the administration, the commissioner will exercise discretion having regard to the certainty and fairness, and that there should be objective evidence to prove the special circumstance. Now, I do not subscribe to this view because the commissioner could just directly reject an application which does not come with cogent evidence. I hope that the government will continue to refine the above situation and adopt a system that can deal with the special circumstances. I also hope that after full implementation of the framework, both services, such as ride-hailing services and taxi services, can go hand in hand. They can complement each other and form healthy competition so that drivers from both sides will be able to secure a stable income and make ends meet. If the platform exploits driver through algorithms, the government should step in and rectify the situation.
Mr. Yu Patlang. President, the principal ordinance was passed in Legislature last year. Since then, we have entered a new era for regulation of personalized point-to-point transport services. I appreciate the Secretary taking an innovative approach trying to resolve the persistent issue of regulation of ride-hailing vehicles, even setting out the regulatory details, fostering a reasonable competitive environment for personalized point-to-point transport services, and provide more diversified options for citizens and visitors. With the 4 pieces of subsidiary on this occasion, we have, for example, the introduction of a combined driving test for taxi and ride-hailing vehicle drivers, the limit of the number of ride-hailing vehicles being set at 10,000. As the Deputy Chairman of the Panel on Transport, I have been actively collecting feedback from different sectors, including taxi drivers as well as ride-hailing platforms. I would like to raise a couple of suggestions today. There were disputes on the limit for ride-hailing vehicle permits. The discussion's focus is mainly on whether the limit number can satisfy the demand. I believe the administration setting the limit at 10,000 has struck a balance between different parties, taking into account passenger experience as well as capacity. It is a prudent number, but we want to move gradually, and the administration already pledged that there would be dynamic assessments. But I think we should not stop at assessments. We should have dynamic adjustments. I hope the administration can make good use of the different data provided by platforms in future and make scientific assessments and regular reports to the Panel on Transport. Through such communication, they can also get feedback from the council and by extension different stakeholders to better implement the relevant policy. Right now, taxi fares are stringently regulated by subsidiary legislation. They can't decrease their fares to compete for customers. I think the concerns of the taxi trade is warranted, with ride-hailing vehicles not having a minimum fare. It may affect the business of the taxi trade. if there is cutthroat competition, it not only affects the taxi trade but also hurts the healthy development of ride-hailing platforms. The government wishes not to intervene at this point in time and set up fair indicators for ride-hailing vehicles, but I think the administration, as they should, reserve the power to intervene by law. This has ensured flexibility of fare setting as well as fairness in competition. With point-to-point transport services, it is the first point of contact for many visitors. It is really important that we give a good impression. At the end of November, we will have licenses issued to platforms, and they will start recruiting for relevant personnel, and the provisions will come into effect in August next year. I urge the administration and the police during this transitional period continue to take stringent enforcement action against white license cars to protect legitimate interests of stakeholders. Thank you. Mr. Chan Pui-Leung. Thank you, President. Ride-hailing vehicles have been in operation in Hong Kong for over 10 years, but before we did not have clear regulation in law. With inadequate regulation, there are some hazards associated with passenger safety. It also causes unhealthy competition with taxis. The current government has implemented reforms for point-to-point public transport services. Since October, the principal ordinance came into force or was passed. Afterwards, the administration has been fleshing out the details of the regulatory regime, including the 4 pieces of subsidiary we are scrutinizing on this occasion. I support the proposals as it would provide a safe and orderly environment for development of ride-hailing services in Hong Kong. I am especially concerned about the setting of a limit for ride-hailing vehicles as well as insurance. I think these will directly affect the commute experience as well as the development of the trade. Let's first talk about the limit of the number of vehicles. The administration will take a dynamic assessment approach. They want to set a limit to that there won't be vicious competition and serious road congestion. But I think the 10,000 number is relatively conservative. If, according to the analysis of the administration, if we have to maintain current supply to meet relevant demand, we should have at least 70,000 to 20,000 permits. And if we look at the ratio of taxis and ride-hailing vehicles in other countries and regions, the number of ride-hailing vehicle permits should not be lower than the permits for taxis. I therefore urge the administration to pay close attention to the situation after a certain period of implementing relevant policies, to pay close attention to the actual market situation. We also need to make sure we take into account drivers withdrawing from the program. We need to make sure ride-hailing vehicles drivers meet the requirement for the specified number and make dynamic adjustments if necessary to meet passenger demand. With insurance will start when the driver takes up the order until the cancellation of the booking or the driver completing relevant order. During the scrutiny stage of the subcommittee, in terms of insurance, these would involve 2 policies, as these ride-hailing vehicles are private vehicles. For example, if ride ride-hailing vehicle drivers are transporting their families, but they have taken up an order on the way. The insurance for the private vehicle itself should not apply, but then as there is some sort of gray area with the ride-hailing vehicle policy as well, it may not offer the protection required, and especially when the two policies may involve two different insurance companies. There will be even more confusion. I support the administration's approach in setting out codes of practice as well as confirming that only one insurance company can provide the different insurance policies to a single vehicle. I urge the administration to maintain close communication with the insurance sector to make clear where the boundaries lie. I think it would offer better protection for passengers and drivers alike in future in terms of insurance. Thank you. I so submit. Mr. Tommy Chung, thank you, President. I, in principle, support the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation. Before ride-hailing platforms operate in a gray area, explicitly regulating them would help us move forward in terms of development of public transport in Hong Kong. On the premise of ensuring safety, we want to better serve the public's commute needs. We don't want to overly intervene to impede the development of the market. We have the road traffic limit on number of ride-hailing vehicle permits notice setting the limit at 10,000. I support the setting of a limit, but 10,000 is not enough to meet the huge demand from citizens and visitors for point-to-point transport services. We have to understand 2 objective facts. We may not have, with the 10,000 permits, regular service capacity. So if ride-hailing vehicle drivers drive for 6 hours every day, it would just make for 1/3 of the capacity of a taxi driver. So with 10,000 vehicle permits, it's just equivalent to 3,300 odd taxis on the roads. It is not enough to meet peak hours demand. And with the taxi trade rapidly aging and facing serious manpower shortage, many citizens and visitors said during peak hours they could not hail down any taxis. Ride-hailing vehicles can meet the service gap and provide another option for citizens and visitors that are offered at affordable prices and anticipated prices. The administration has promulgated some responsibilities of ride-hailing platforms to keep records, and I think with platforms providing data to the administration should make dynamic assessments every 2 months or at least every quarter, and should there be such need, increase the limit so that we won't have vicious competition and a significant increase in fares. We have also some statutory requirements on complaints, figures, and categories for ride-hailing platforms. I think these are very good requirements. On the other hand, we do not have such requirements for the taxi trade. We do not have immediate feedback from passengers of taxis as a result. I think we should make sure there is healthy competition. Having this public assessment mechanism for the taxi trade would prevent taxi drivers from selecting passengers or having a poor driving attitude or service. With this public commentary mechanism, citizens can eliminate those who do not have a good driving attitude, and that should improve the reputation of the taxi trade. Regulating ride-hailing vehicles, what citizens aspire. I hope that with the implementation of subsidiary legislation, the administration can make dynamic assessments every 2 months or every quarter to meet the commute demand of citizens. I so submit speaking in support of the motion.
我今日發言
Mr. Ray Wong, President, I speak in support of the regulation over ride-hailing service. I think that the government, however, need to be people-oriented and keep up with the time. They need to review the mechanism regularly and improve the relevant details to make sure that the new regulation meets the relevant demand, and eventually we need to promote the healthy development of the transport industry. Last October, the government passed the principal ordinance on ride-hailing service. That was the first regulatory regime over ride-hailing service. This has put an end to the illegal operation of ride-hailing trade. After that, the government formulated a series of subsidiary legislation on driving licenses, vehicle permits, and so on and so forth. A vehicle permit cap of 10,000 has been set. This is a top-down approach. The government has set out all the details. I think that this shows the government's determination in consolidating the transport trade. However, I must stress that the vehicle permit of 10,000 should be a starting point. It should not be an end point. The cap is set to make sure that the illegal operation of ride-hailing can be regulated. At the same time, we need to combat illegal ride-hailing service. This is a transitional arrangement, but 10,000 vehicle cap need to be reviewed afterwards. Given the changes in our population and new development areas being developed, the commute model and demand is evolving. If we don't keep the vehicle permit cap unchanged, this will result in a shortage of supply of ride-hailing vehicles. I think that under the dynamic assessment mechanism, the government need to look into the demand of the market, the traffic flow of different districts, and the demand of the people. We need to balance the interests of different trades, the taxi trade, the ride-hailing trade, and the members of the public. The government need to dynamically adjust the vehicle permit cap and the regulations operations. President, we need to keep to our intent of regulating ride-hailing service. It's not just about monitoring and supervision. It's about making our point-to-point transport service more flexible, more convenient to the people. In the past, we only have a taxi. Now, legalizing ride-hailing service offers another more flexible, more transparent option for the members of the public, especially for those living in remote areas, for those who need to go out during the small hours. Ride-hailing service plug the gap in the market. This makes our people happier. Given that our city is modernized, we are an international metropolis, we need to have ride-hailing service. Some people worried if the ride-hailing trade will destroy the taxi industry. I think that this is instead a healthy competition. Protectionism cannot bring about improvement and development. I think that by introducing this ride-hailing trade and service, we will ensure that the taxi industry improve their service and reform their operation model. The coexistence of the ride-hailing and taxi trades will form a complementary point-to-point transport system. This is not a zero-sum game. I think that this will allow us to see an improvement in the overall service quality of the industry. This will benefit 7 million people in Hong Kong. I need to stress again that I fully support the regulatory regime over ride-hailing service. We need to restructure the market order. Second, I ask the government to dynamically assess and review the 10,000 vehicle permit cap. The government need to adjust dynamically. Third, we need to be people-oriented. We need to make sure that there is a healthy development in the market to benefit the members of the public. I hope that the government will lead the transport industry towards high-quality development with wisdom and software. So submit, Mr. Eric Yim. Thank you, President. Over the past 10 years, ride-hailing trade has been operating in legal gray area. There is demand, but we don't have a regulatory regime of ride-hailing service. Passenger safety, interest of drivers, order of the market are all unprotected. The government is introducing 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation on ride-hailing service. Now we are regulating and legalizing ride-hailing service. I think that this is an important piece of policy to benefit members of the public. I am a member of this committee on the subsidiary legislation. I made a few suggestions which have been taken on board by the government. I hope that all these will be implemented. At the initial stage, the 10,000 vehicle permit cap should just be a starting point. The government need to dynamically assess and review the demand of people's commute and for point-to-point transport. The government need to adjust the number of vehicle permit in time to make sure that we don't have too many vehicle permits that exacerbate the burden on road. After we issue license to platforms, some of them may offer discounts, deep discounts to draw customers and passengers to enlarge their market share. If we look at other places, if a platform does not operate well, if they go bankrupt, then the amount that passengers top up in their account with the platform will be lost, and this will result in a social incident. I think that the government needs to establish a regulatory system to make sure that the platform establish an independent trust account. We need to set a limit on how much people can top up in their account. Third, on the drawing of lots of vehicle permits of drivers. Although some experienced drivers are interested in driving ride-hailing vehicles, they're not able to purchase a vehicle in advance, and as a result, they will not be able to participate in becoming a ride-hailing vehicle drivers. I think that the government need to improve the mechanism for members of the public who don't have a card yet. We should allow them to participate in the drawing of lots, and we now after they are assigned a permit, we should then allow them some time to purchase a vehicle. Lastly, in other regions, we have seen cases of drivers sexually harassing female passengers. So I think that we need to go more than just asking drivers to go for a physical checkup or traffic conviction records. We need to make sure that drivers don't have sexual offense records. For those that have been convicted with sex-related crimes, they should not be able to become a ride-hailing vehicle drivers. The government said that they asked the platform to introduce functions such as a journey sharing and one key support. And the government said that they are also going to look into the possibility of asking the platform to vet drivers' sex offense records. For aged drivers, we need to also ask them to go for physical checkup to make sure that we ensure the passenger safety. A clear regulatory regime for ride-hailing service can improve our point-to-point transport ecosystem. I support the subsidiary legislation. I so submit. Mr. Lee Jian-kan. Thank you, President. Let's talk about the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation on ride-hailing service. Hopefully, after their passage, we can address the issue of illegal white license cars. These days, people often book their vehicles on their mobile phones. Point-to-point transport offers another option for people to commute. I believe that this is a great idea. Now, the government said that they are going to adopt a dynamic assessment approach. I fully support it. However, the difference between taxi and ride-hailing vehicles is that taxis can pick up passengers on the street, but ride-hailing drivers, they can only accept bookings via a platform. However, demand in different hours may change. During peak hours when people go to work, get off work, during long holidays, during adverse weather conditions, the demand is usually higher for point-to-point transport service. In the small hours, the demand may be lower. So there may be competition between taxis and ride-hailing trade. So under the dynamic assessment mechanism, I hope that the Transport Department will make use of AI to conduct real-time assessment. Given the different demand during different hours, maybe the government can increase the number of permits for ride-hailing vehicles at those hours. Now on safety, Mr. Eric Yim made a very good point. Point-to-point transport services may not just be used by adults. Maybe they're used by children, female passengers, or elderly person. They may take ride-hailing vehicles without the presence or accompanied by their family members. We should allow them to, say, share the journey with their family members. We should allow them to turn on audio recording with their mobile phone. We should allow them to perhaps call the police by just clicking a button. This is how we ensure the safety of passengers. We need to introduce healthy competition. We need to have more platforms. But I hope that for drivers, for vehicle requirements, we can hold them to the same standard to taxi trade. For taxi industry, their drivers need to examine their vehicles once every year. When they reach the age of 65, they need to go for physical checkup. They also have a taxi driver offense point system. I think that the same should apply to ride-hailing vehicle drivers and also their vehicles. This is how we ensure passenger safety and service quality. Taxi drivers need to charge according to the meters, but for ride-hailing platforms, they charge their passengers different fares at different hours. So the fares may be different for the same journey between taxi and ride-hailing vehicles. Under urgent situation, we may not care about the $1 to $2 difference in terms of fares. For drivers that can offer good quality service, we may even offer them tips. So overall speaking, I hope that the government will ensure a win-win situation among the passengers, the taxi drivers, and ride-hailing vehicle drivers. So apart from upgrading and transforming our service, hopefully through virtuous interactions and competition, we offer convenience to the members of the public with technology. At the same time, I hope that the government will report to the LegCo the data that they collect via the platforms so that we can offer our views on the requirements and criteria on ride-hailing trade. Thank you. I also submit I support the legislation.
有冇其他議員想發言？
Does any member wish to speak? If not, I will invite the government official to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, I thank Mr. Ronald Chan for moving the motion. I listened carefully just now and yesterday to the views of 24 members who have spoken. I thank members for their comments. Before I give a response, I'd first like to thank Mr. Ben Chen, Chairman of the subcommittee, as well as 14 members and the Legislative Council Secretariat for their joint efforts in a tight time frame. The subcommittee held 4 meetings totaling about 10 hours of deliberation. There were interactions and there were inspirational views expressed on the 4 items of subsidiary legislation. Hong Kong has world-class public transportation system. It offers convenient, efficient, and diverse travel options for members of the public. On point-to-point transportation service, apart from traditional taxi services, the emergence of ride-hailing services in recent years has met the diversified needs of commuters, especially on personalized services. In fact, the development of ride-hailing services has become an irreversible global trend. Hong Kong is an international city. It is also an tourist city. We must keep abreast with the times. We must introduce an enhanced regulatory regime. At the same time, by providing more flexible and adaptable work models, we can better unleash the potential of the workforce so as to inject new blood into the industry. And this can alleviate the pressure of shortage of public transport drivers so that we can create a healthier and more sustainable transport ecosystem. The Legislative Council passed the principal legislation last year. It was towards the end of the Council's session, so we managed to pass the legislation within a short period of time. I have high expectations on the implementation details together with members of the community. We had thorough discussions, and I also received a lot of views in the process. Some of them were really inspirational. So having consulted extensively the trades, we have come up with the 4 subsidiary legislations to establish a safer, compliant, and diversified ecosystem for the transportation sector. Now, there is prevailing concern about the number of permits. The subcommittee has discussed the matter in great detail. I'm going to summarize our deliberations in 10 points. And that is the policies positioning, platform regulation, passenger safety, market development, license conditions, effective law enforcement, dynamic assessment and adjustment, insurance, data security, as well as e-public service. Now, the subcommittee, on the whole, acknowledged our major principles, including putting a cap on the number of ride-hailing permits and dynamic assessment and adjustment, and I thank members for their support. This regulatory regime comes with some core principles. It also comes with a set of rigorous laws and regulations. At the same time, we provide flexibility to monitor the ecosystem of the ride-hailing service. I'm going to explain the 4 major principles. First, on platform regulation, we want to promote regulated development. In the future, all platform operators will have to apply for a license. They will also need to exercise due diligence checks on the vehicles and drivers. I feel encouraged that in recent years there have been parties expressing interest. We want to promote healthy market development in order to enhance service quality. This will be the best catalyst Multiple platforms can coexist, and this will stimulate market vitality, and this will benefit locals and visitors alike. The second principle is the owner-driver requirement. In other words, only registered owners of vehicles can drive that vehicle to provide ride-hailing services. Now, this is unique to Hong Kong. We want to phase out unscrupulous and illegal drivers. We also want to prevent speculation of permits. This can also help unleash the potential of vehicles left idle at the moment. Now, according to this requirement, each driver and each vehicle providing ride-hailing services will be subject to approval by the Transport Department, and only when there is a valid permit and valid vehicle license would it be allowed to provide service. The other point is that each vehicle will come with a third-party risk insurance, and this can boost the confidence of commuters. The third point is a smart regulatory system. Now, the Transport Department will be the gatekeeper. There will be a smart regulatory system to monitor ride-hailing platforms. We will not just rely on manual law enforcement. We must keep up with technological developments, and that means we establish an information management system and an e-communication channel that can dovetail with different platforms so as to collect data from them. This can help us exercise effective oversight of the performance of the platforms. And we also need to make sure that there is compliance. In the long term, the regulatory system will form part of our blueprint on smart transport system in Hong Kong. By using big data, we can conduct analysis so as to gauge demand for point-to-point transport services at different periods across the territory. And this can help us further improve public transport planning and ease traffic congestion. We also want to improve other forms of transport management on the whole. The fourth point is about overall control and dynamic assessment. In other cities, we've seen examples of not having a cap on the vehicle permits, and as a result, the number continues to increase, leading to serious traffic jams. And this will also cause a drastic drop in the income of drivers, and this will also spark unhealthy competition within the trade. This is a lose-lose for all. Having regard to the unique situation in Hong Kong, we need to set a cap on the number of ride-hailing vehicle permits. We have listened to views from different sectors of the community. We've also looked at the survey data of point-to-point transport service. We also considered the overall transport situation in Hong Kong and the capacity of road networks. And having regard to all these matters at this stage, we plan to set the cap at 10,000 permits. But this is not a figure set in stone. In terms of the number of permits and whether the number is sufficient in meeting market demand and maintaining market ecosystem, we also need to rely on the efficiency of the platform's algorithm as well as the mode of operation. In the future, there will be changes in terms of demand for personalized point-to-point transport service or ride-hailing service and the supply of drivers and vehicles. We're going to attach great importance to data. We will conduct detailed analysis and assessment in a dynamic manner so that in a timely manner we will consider whether to adjust this cap on the number of permits. Now, I heard members' views on and concerns on dynamic assessment, so allow me to elaborate on this matter. In the third quarter of this year, the Transport Department will conduct a baseline survey to assess the usage rate of ride-hailing services. Upon commissioning of platforms, the operators will be required to provide operational data to the Transport Department based on the license conditions and the regulatory requirements, including the number of drivers in service and the waiting time for passengers. The data can help the government grasp the operational situation of platforms so that with reference to data, we can also collect information from other channels such as the taxi trades situation, the growth in the number of visitors and overall economic development, and that will be able to fully give play to the spirit of dynamic assessment. Members have also gave views on the interactions between platform, vehicles, and drivers. I'd like to respond to that as well. On regulating the platform, it's something close to the heart of many members. Now, first of all, under the new arrangement, we will give equal treatment to platforms directly dispatching vehicles as well as aggregators. They will be required to apply for a platform license. And we will also require the platforms to use technology to exercise due diligence. For example, facial recognition or other authentication measures to identify drivers. And there will also be surprise checks on from time to time before or during the operation of the ride-hailing service to identify the driver's identity. We'll also require platforms to include the functions of share journey and one-click support in the app so as to enhance protection for passengers. As for vehicles, the subcommittee deliberated in detail how members of the public could identify the ride-hailing vehicles. Now, special markings should be displayed according to the regulation for easy identification by the public and law enforcement officers. We'll also stipulate clearly in the law that starting from the acceptance of the order by the driver until the cancellation of the order or completion of service, this private car will be regarded as in the course of providing passenger carrying service. And in actual operation, will impose a licensing condition so that at the on driver's side, they will need to say click a button to accept the booking of the passenger, or at the time of picking up the passenger, and with a click of a button, the driver will also need to confirm completion of service at the end of the journey so that there is a clear record of when the journey starts and ends. And these are very important safeguards when it comes to ensuring compliance. Some members have also referred to third-party risk insurance. According to the law, a private car must meet all the legal requirements, including a valid third-party insurance, before applying for a ride-hailing vehicle permit. And we have liaised very closely with the insurance sector. We've heeded their views on the taking out of insurance policies. Now we are inclined to extend the existing private car insurance policy. That is, we encourage registered drivers to take out insurance for their ride-hailing vehicles so as to adopt a more appropriate approach. This arrangement is in line with the existing practice of drivers taking out third-party insurance. In the future, because of this extension of insurance policy, drivers will be able to obtain seamless protection. Owners of vehicles will be able to obtain seamless protection. We'll continue to liaise with the insurance sector to iron out details. We'll also impose licensing conditions and put in place details in the practical guidelines. On drivers, to encourage newcomers to join the point-to-point transportation service, we will refine the examination arrangement. That means there will be a combined test for ride-hailing drivers and taxi drivers. Taxi driver permit holders can expeditiously apply for a ride-hailing permit without taking a written test or a pre-service course again. Now, at this point, I think we're concerned about the implementation timetable. With the completion of scrutiny of the 4 items of subsidiary relation, the majority of the relevant provisions will come into effect on the 3rd of August this year. In August, we will invite platform companies to apply for ride-hailing service license. We will also launch the combined test for taxi and ride-hailing drivers so that interested drivers can get prepared as early as possible. In the 4th quarter of this year, they'll be able to apply for the permits. Now, if everything goes smooth, the first batch of platform licenses will be issued starting from the end of November this year, and that's with 9 months available for preparation. The provisions regulating platforms will come into effect in full starting from the 22nd of August next year. All platforms will have to be licensed. They will also need to implement requirements such as due diligence checks. There are also other stringent measures in terms of temporary suspension of vehicle licenses involved in illegal carriage of passengers for reward. They will come into effect on the same day. Now, let me stress a number of points in terms of support for the development of the taxi trade. This is not a zero-sum game. The taxi trade and the ride-hailing service complement each other. In the past few years, we have put in place a number of measures to promote reform of the taxi trade and enhance the service quality. The taxi trade enjoys unique advantages, and these will not change because of introduction of regulation for ride-hailing services. On the contrary, a level playing field will be provided to ensure sustainable operational environment. We will also require platform operators to provide greater support for taxi drivers providing ride-hailing services so as to help them get more income. At the same time, we will continue to go after illegal white license vehicles to protect the interests of legitimate operators and passengers. We believe these measures will be able to help promote long-term sustainable and healthy development of the taxi trade. President, this is a challenging task for us, given Hong Kong's unique characteristics and the international practices for ride-hailing services. The government has balanced public demand for different traveling options, industry concerns, road capacity considerations. Through regulating ride-hailing services, we will be able to optimize Hong Kong's personalized point-to-point transportation ecosystem. My team and I fully believe that traditional taxis and ride-hailing services will complement each other, and they will continue to improve our point-to-point personalized transport services in Hong Kong. My team and I will continue to adopt a pragmatic approach with unwavering determination to proceed in the right direction, and we will also firmly stand ground so as to ensure that a robust foundation is established together with members of the public to take forward the various tasks. Looking ahead, we'd like to join hands with everyone, including members of this council, in order to build a vibrant system for personalized point-to-point transportation service so as to provide more protection for the public and provide a safer, more efficient, and more technologically advanced smart commuting experience. In accordance with Rule 49E9 of the Rules of Procedure, I will not put any question on motion. I now adjourn the Council.